Well, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 46 of the Drunken Boxing Podcast, coming to you as always from the capital of Erguotou, Beijing. I hope you're all doing well as we go through 2023. Can you believe it's almost April already? Time really does fly. Alright, let's get into some Mushin martial culture news. Over on our YouTube channel, I have released a few interesting videos since the last podcast episode was released. Two of them being Senki features, which I filmed while I was in New York in February. The first one features Richard Amos, who was on the Drunken Boxing Podcast in the past, and is the author of the wonderful book How I Learned to Just Say Os, which is a memoir of his time training at the JKA headquarters in Tokyo and becoming the first certified JKA karate instructor hailing from Europe. The book is a great read, and a link to it is in the description. This Senki video is a candid glimpse into his teaching and training. The second Senki video features Vincent May, who is a Wutan instructor based in New York. He too was a previous guest on the podcast, and we get into a glimpse into his teaching and endeavors to spread his Wutan art through modern mediums. Go check these two videos out. I also released a video regarding Dong Haichuan, the illustrious founder of the art of Baguazhang, and I give you a history of his original and subsequent tombs, and I went to film at both locations. You can see the original tombs area as well as the subsequent tomb in 4K, which I think is the first time this has been done. There is also more to come in this Baguazhang series, including a lengthy interview I conducted with my martial aunt, who is Li Ziming's daughter, at her Bagua Museum, which she established in Beijing. Additionally, if you're interested in getting a high-quality portrait of Dong Haichuan for your school, or home, or training location, go check out our recently released poster, available at the Mushin Martial Culture merchandise store. It is available in 2 sizes, and it really does look great. The link to the store is in the notes. Purchasing some of our merchandise is one way to support the podcast and the channel in general. Another way is through our Patreon page, which has 2 general support tiers and a 3rd tier, the Huajin tier, which is the online learning program tier. Here you can study the arts of Hebei Xingyiquan and Liang-style Baguazhang in depth. There are already over 100 highly detailed and professionally compiled lesson videos that go into great detail regarding the training methods, techniques, applications, theories, etc. within the systems, making it a one-of-a-kind learning program on these arts. If you were ever interested in learning these arts, one or both, check the program out. The Patreon page may be found at patreon.com/Mushin Martial Culture. That's all one word. Mushin Martial Culture, and as always, the link is in the notes. A big thank you to everyone who does support my endeavors. Without your support, I couldn't continue these or the podcast. Additionally, there are behind the scenes and bonus footage that is only available to supporters on Patreon. Okay, let's get into today's podcast. My guest today is Zhang Yukai, who hails from Taipei in Taiwan. He is the Chair Research Professor of the Department of Physical Education and Sports Sciences at the National Taiwan Normal University. He is also the Director at the Physical Activity and Cognitive Neuroscience Laboratory. He is the President of the Society for Sport and Exercise Psychology of Taiwan, the Vice President of the Asian South Pacific Association of Sports Psychology, and the Mental Consultant for the Chinese Professional Basketball League. His focus is exercise psychology, sports psychology, cognitive neuroscience, and physical activity and cognitive function. He holds multiple honors and awards from distinguished universities in both Taiwan and the USA for his work, and has over 200 publications to his name. He has based much of his work on his background in Chinese martial arts, which includes being an 8th generation, Dingzi generation, Baguazhang practitioner, a Yang-style Taiji Chuan practitioner of the Yang Shaozhong and Yang Zhengji lineages, a Hebei Xingyiquan practitioner of the Zhang Hongqing lineage, a Northern Shaolin Cha Chuan, Chang Chuan, and Sun Bin Chuan practitioner, and he also practices the southern styles of 3-step and pointing long staff. I first saw Zhang Yukai in some highlight videos of him teaching, and I was instantly impressed. Later, learning about his elite academic background and how his focus combines aspects of traditional Chinese martial arts along with Western science and psychology, I was very keen to chat to him. He is very passionate, hardworking, and a skilled practitioner in both the traditional Chinese martial arts as well as his academic pursuits. He has also published a work on Gao-style Baguazhang, which was released in Taiwan by Lion Books. This discussion with him was fascinating and touched on many topics, and I was left with nothing but respect and praise for Zhang Yukai and his work. So, without further ado, I give you Zhang Yukai. Okay, welcome to the Drunken Boxing Podcast, Mr. Chang Yukai. You're calling all the way in from Taiwan. How are you doing today?
Very good. Very nice to see you, Byron. This is my pleasure to have the small talk with you today.
Well, it's my honor to have you on the show. I reached out to you through Facebook.
Oh,
I saw some of your stuff online. I saw some of your students sharing some of your stuff, and I thought this was all very good things. And I wanted to hear more about you and your art and your history. So welcome.
wow. Thank you very much. I also want to thank my students to post some good video and some news about me.
Yeah. So maybe we can start with that. Maybe you can give a little bit of an introduction about yourself and your background.
Okay, that's my pleasure. I am Yukai Cheng, original from Taiwan. Indeed, I stay in Taiwan. Right now, I currently serve as a professor in Department of Physical Education and Sports Sciences at National Taiwan Normal University. My academic professional is sport and exercise psychology from the cognitive neuroscience approach. So that is my academic background related to me. Except my academic career, I'm very passionate about other things. That is Chinese martial art. Indeed, I have practiced Chinese martial art for more than, I think, 25 years, and that become my passion. Yeah.
Yeah, Chinese martial arts is like that. I think if you do it properly with a good teacher, if you're lucky enough to find somebody, then when you start practicing, it becomes a very big and important part of your life. And it's actually a great thing because I think it makes people's lives richer, more full, and more interesting. So
yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, your background in sports sciences, psychology, as well as your profession is very interesting as well, because a lot of people seem to think that these two ideas, one being traditional Chinese martial arts and one being modern sports science and indeed extension psychology, they think these two ideas are completely opposite directions. What do you think about this?
Oh, I think you're right. But the reason I love the Chinese the sport and exercise psychology is that I can connect the East society to Western society. I come from the traditional Chinese martial art, which I think that is really very oriented. I mean, it's a East perspective. And then I had the opportunity to study the sport and exercise psychology. I got some idea from the Western society how to view a different perspective. Then I'm able to connect these two ideas together. So that is very interesting to me for sure.
And I think it's a very useful thing. I mean, what you've explained, even though my teacher was not somebody who studied these subjects in university, he is somebody that was always studying and still is. He was always curious, and he used to tell me that even in his younger days, he used to go to Guojia Tushuguan here in Beijing and read as many books as he could, even from different sports and exercise, like Western sport, basketball, running, even weightlifting, looking at both psychological aspects as well as physical aspects with regards to mechanics, body mechanics, and sports science. And he said, actually, this helped him to better understand the traditional martial arts that he learned from a young boy and to understand the body, because some things were focused on in traditional teaching, but using a different perspective, and some things weren't. And some things are focused on in the West, that are lacking in the East, and also some things are focused on in the Eastern side that are lacking in and these together kind of painted a bigger picture of the whole that helped him to understand better.
Yes, I think you tell very right things. To my opinion, since I come from the traditional Chinese martial arts society and also have some learning from the Western society, I do think both of the perspective have their own special benefit. So, for example, from the health perspective, I think the sport science or exercise science give us a very efficient way to make you healthy. That's in Chinese, or I call it 健身, which make your body healthy. On the other hand, the Chinese martial art is a benefit for 养生, which is mean make you have a better quality of life and养生 means in Taoism we say that is 长生久视, which means through the Chinese martial art, if you do that correctly, you will not only healthy but also can make your life forever.
Longer, so longevity.
Longevity. That's a very different idea. But at the same time, when you I think when you practice the Chinese martial art, you will mainly have the 养生 perspective. But if you want to get the 健身 quickly, the sport science can give you that better.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Chinese martial art, although the Western knowledge give you a 健身 a little quickly, but it may not be give you a 养生. So for my opinion, they have their own specialty. And what I do is try to combine this together. And then we can get the benefit from these two perspectives.
That's very interesting, and it's very relevant. I think, you've just made me think about something. I remember when sometimes people would ask me about doing Chinese martial arts for health. They were not experienced in Chinese martial arts. They would ask me, why can I not just go to the gym and run on the running machine? It will make me healthy. But when I see people, and I would explain to them, I said to them, but when you are on the running machine, what are you doing? And they say, oh, I'm running. I said, yeah, but what else are you doing? Usually I'm listening to music, or if they have a TV in the gym, I will watch something on the TV to make the time go. I said, why do you need to make the time go? And they say, because they are bored when they are running on this machine. And this very basic idea of doing an activity that is boring has a very fundamental idea with Yang Shen, which you were talking about, improving your life and making you live longer. Because I think Chinese martial arts, apart from the other aspects, on a very fundamental aspect, is something that you can enjoy doing, not just with your body because it makes you healthy, but with your mind and with your spirit. So mind and spirit has a very big impact on quality and length of life, longevity. We know this from a psychological point of view. So it's a very interesting point you raised.
Wow, very good. And try to extend your points that, for my opinions, Chinese martial art can I use 6 words to describe this. That is the principle of 四身二文美, which means 4 body and 1 culture and 1 beautiful. The 4身, 四身, 4身 means, which means 健身, healthy your body.
Healthy, yeah.
身 means body. 养生 make you longevity, we just mentioned about. The other 2 身 body is that the 防身 self-defense, and that is what the Chinese martial art can give us. And then 修身, which means cultivate.
Cultivation.
Cultivation,
Yes.
cultivating your body. That's what I call the 四身. And 二文美, which means 2 other things. One is the culture. That is more spiritual things, and that make you think for whole of your life. Not only the health issue, that is what the Chinese martial art can give us, and then the beautiful. The beautiful means your body beautiful. The beautiful of the body is not mean you are very strong, but when you practice Chinese martial art, you have very different attitude. You have a very different circumstance with the other people. When people see you, you are a very different person. And your body have what people think you is a unique person, and that is what the Chinese martial art, spiritual can give us.
Very
So
true.
I think, yeah. So I organize that as the 四生二文美, 4 body and 1 culture and 1 beautiful, and that is the reason we want to practice Chinese martial art.
You know, it's very interesting that you've summarized it with those terms. You know, I've had this, and there's some interviews where I've explained this in the past, even video interviews where I would say that practicing traditional Chinese martial art is like 5 fingers on a hand, and the 5 fingers are, of course, physical health, so exercise.
Yes.
Yeah. The other aspect is social health, because you interact with society through practice. It makes your socialization something that is valuable for life. The third aspect is entertainment, right? And culture. So there's this aspect as well. So cultural and entertainment is something you enjoy, not like running on a running machine where you need to watch TV because you are so bored, but you enjoy the practice, you know. So, and then there's a cultural learning. You're learning language, you're learning history, you're learning different things like that. And the fourth one is spiritual development. And of course, the fifth one is martial value, so self-defense and martial. But the fifth one I always say is like the thumb, 大拇指, because if your hand doesn't have a thumb, another 4 fingers is quite useless. And this is you know, what holds the Chinese martial arts together is that those, of course, all are important, but the one that holds them together, that is quite different to another activity, is the martial side of it. Because you can get a lot of these other 4 from things like yoga. You can get them maybe from dancing, traditional dancing. You can get them from other activities. But the one thing that Chinese martial arts adds extra is this martial arts side of things, this martial value. So it's very similar to what you said. I like your analogy quite a lot as well.
Thank you very much, and I do think your summarized point using the 5 fingers are excellent as well. And you can tell, although we have some similarity and the difference about the reason we love the Chinese martial art, but we all have many different reasons that we like this. That means Chinese martial art can give us multi benefit. Not only the one benefit.
Yes, exactly. So this comes back to the original side where you were saying that, you know, the Western sports science can give us one important aspect to perspective to look at physical activity, but the Chinese martial art will give us another aspect which is missing from that that one. So, you know, my teacher always said that his understanding of the physical science, Western physical science, helped him to further develop and refine his physical practice in the martial arts. And I'm curious to ask you, from a psychological point of view, what value and aspects, different perspectives you have found between East and West in this regard.
Wow, that's a very good question. Yeah, indeed, they are, right now I focus on the mental health perspective. And there are many different approaches that can improve your mental health. And what I try to combine the Chinese martial art to the mental health is that I try to create a very different exercise program, particularly from Chinese martial art perspective, and see if that can improve our brain health. And that is a very new perspective from mental health. In the past, people will recognize the mental health as the anxiety, stress, and the depression. But more and more study recently observed that exercise can also improve your brain health. And right now, since the exercise can improve our brain health, what is the best program, exercise program, to improve your brain health?
Right.
And my lab, my research lab, is try to focus on the Chinese martial art the perspective to design our program. And one of the reasons we want to design it is because, as we mentioned, Chinese martial art program have many beneficial inside the program, and which might be able to improve our brain health as well.
Right. Yeah. So from the various ideas that and contents that people generally understand to be included in Chinese martial art practice,
Mhm.
which aspects do you think have a direct connection to mental health and mental development?
Well, I think there are many. First of all, when we practice Chinese martial art, we are not only training the specific fitness. Indeed, we training multi, which means various fitness abilities. In Western society, we always recognize there are many types of fitness, such as cardiovascular fitness, that is the main one. But there are still many other types of fitness, such as muscular strength, muscular endurance, and body composition, agility, balance, coordination. These different type of fitness all connect to the brain health. However, when we just do the one type of exercise, such as jogging, swimming, we can only improve one type of fitness. But when we practice Chinese martial art, when you practice that correctly, you can have many type of you can improve many type of fitness abilities. Then all these can connect to improve your brain health. And that is the first reason we try to combine we call the multi-component exercise program from Chinese martial art. The second thing is that when we practice Chinese martial art, as you mentioned before, we have to focus on what we're doing. We are not just like a jogging. When you jogging, you can listen to music, you can watch the TV, because you can do that. That's no problem at all. But when we practice Chinese martial art, we have to focus on our movement, and by doing so, we try to do the meditation and the mindfulness during the exercise. And these days, many of study already observe that mindfulness can also improve our brain health. And what we do is try to use the Chinese martial art approach to the dynamic movement to improve your mindfulness ability, to improve your brain health. That's a very special thing.
No, it very much is, and I agree with you fully. I mean, my personal styles are practice are the styles of Xing Yiquan and Baguazhang, and of course, this idea of mindfulness is very, very heavy. From the idea of yi to the idea of connection to the idea of working on your, body mechanics. This mindful connection is always it's quite strong with
Yes.
these styles.
Wow.
So it's quite
Mention.
interesting. It's quite interesting because, as you mentioned, we said we know more and more, and we're understanding more and more about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if any of your research has looked at the age issue. So as people get older and
Mm-hmm.
they decline physically and they decline mentally. And I'm
Uh-huh.
sure we know more and more now that the decline physical and mental are connected to one another. So
Mm-hmm.
by improving the one, you might be able to improve the other. So if you have some activity for older people that mentally works on them connecting mental and physical, they will improve themselves physically. But by doing certain physical activities, they will also stop the decline of their mental and cognitive function as they get older. Is there any are you doing any research into
Oh yeah,
this side?
I think yes, that is what I research too. Indeed, we observe that after when you do the exercise, when you do the exercise in the young or even in middle age, and even you are older adult, when you practice the exercise and also the Chinese martial art, major of the study focus on the Tai Chi, you will improve your cognitive function and also decrease the cognitive, we call it cognitive decline during your old age.
Yeah.
And that is the new finding in our academic society. So exercise, including the Chinese martial art, can increase your cognitive function even when you get old.
I think that's a very useful aspect of Chinese martial arts that can improve society as a whole. I get quite sad when I see what people, specifically in the West, it's very common when somebody gets old, they get put into an old age home. The children are busy with their life and they get put into an old age home. The old age home is not a good environment to stimulate someone's mind. And you see when people go into old age home, they have a very rapid decline, physically, of course, but mentally as well. And when you compare that to societies like in China, where most of the old people stay at home with their children until they are old, and then they also interact with, the community, the people in the community on a daily basis, whether they go outside to the park, whether they're doing, dancing, guangchang wu, or singing, or tai chi, they stay healthy mentally as well as physically much longer. So yeah, it's a very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your personal Chinese martial arts background, maybe you can give us some information on that.
Okay, that will be my pleasure.
Okay.
The reason I start to practice martial art is a little different. The reason I know the Chinese martial art is because of the comic I read. There's a very famous comic in Taiwan, but indeed that was wrote in Japan that described one Japanese. He went to he learned the Chinese martial art in Japan, and then he traveled to Taiwan, mainland China, to learn the Chinese martial art. I was fantastic about this comic. And one of the special characteristics of the comic is that major of the people in the comic are really person.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, have you heard that comic called Cheng?
Yeah. So isn't it Kenichi, the strongest disciple?
Yeah. I think that is what you mentioned.
Yeah,
So I
that's
was fantastic about the comic and try my best to see if I can learn the Chinese martial art. I was very lucky though. So in my senior high school, one of the teacher, he knows the Chinese martial art, and after I asked his lineage, I observed that that he's the student of the person in the comic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So I said that is so interesting. The comic is mainly talk about the 八极拳, and in Taiwan, there are two very famous 八极拳 practitioners. One is Liu Yunqiao, and other is Li Yuanzhi. Liu Yunqiao is quite famous in Taiwan, major in 八极拳, and other one, Li Yuanzhi, he's not very famous in Taiwan, but indeed he's very famous in mainland China, because he used to be the dean of 中央国术馆, the Central Chinese Martial Art
Institute.
Yeah, Guoshi Institute. Yeah, he's the 教务长, the dean of the teacher. So he went to Taiwan and teach many students 八极拳, and my teacher is one of his students.
Oh, very interesting.
So anyway, I just try to I later start to practice Chinese martial art and learn from he. And about half a years later, I was opportunity to meet another master who is a disciple of Wang Shujin. Have you
Oh,
heard of Wang Shujin
yes, of
before? Yeah,
course. Wang Shujin, the
yeah, Wang Shujin.
Xingyi Bagua practitioner.
Yes, he's a Xinyi Bagua and also a Taiji practitioner in Taiwan, in Taichung area, the center of Taiwan. And from the teacher Huang, I start to realize that, wow, there's the Chinese martial art called the internal Chinese martial art, which is the Xinyi, Taiji, and the Bagua. I start to learn from him a little bit. But after these two teachers, I'm very interested about the Chinese martial art. Then I tell my parents, say that when I go to the university, I'm going to focus on Chinese martial art learning. Indeed, I really to do that. In Taiwan, there is the official department in the university called the 国术 Department of Chinese Martial Art. It's called the 国术系 in Chinese College University.
Nice.
So right now they already changed the name, become the 国术 and the 技击, which means the Chinese martial art,
Right.
or combat, the combat department. But still, that is still today, the Department of Chinese Martial Art is still the only one official department associated with the academic university in Taiwan. So I was entered to the Department of Chinese Martial Art and start to learn the Chinese martial art professionally. One of the teachers I meet is my 师傅 right now. His name is Shibo Zhang. It's also the same family name as me, Zhang, and the name is Shibo. I was become his very first disciples.
Wow.
And what the Zhang Shibo or Shibo Zhang practice is the Shaolin Quan and also Xinyi Bagua. And I learned these three styles from the Shibo Zhang for a long period of time, and the particular interest in Baguazhang right now.
Okay.
So although I already teach the martial art for, I think it's more than 20 years, but what I like the most is the Baguazhang.
Okay, very interesting. You mentioned the university. That's the cultural university that's up on the hill?
Yes, that is a Yangmi Mountain.
Yeah, I've been there many times. I don't know if you...
I don't know that.
Yeah, if you remember, I think it was 2017, Taipei had the 大学生运动会. So
yes, I was there.
I was the technical delegate for Wushu at this event. So I went many times before the competition to set up. And actually, we wanted to have the competition in this university. Because of the history with Chinese martial arts at this university. This is why we wanted to have it at this university, the Wushu competition. The problem was, and I'm sure you know, there's only one road that goes up the mountain. And we were worried with traffic that if there is just a little bit of traffic, all the participants, all the athletes cannot get to the competition venue on time. So we had to move to a stadium in Taoyuan. But actually, we had many meetings with this university. And I have a friend who's from South Africa. He studied a style of Chinese martial art there, which they call Chang. They teach two systems, Chang Quan and Hong Quan.
Okay, Chang, yeah. Chang is quite famous in Taiwan.
So
Chang School.
I think the old head of this association, I think his name is Chen. He was in this university many years ago. And so there's an interesting connection with this history and the university there, as you mentioned. So
wow, you know that in the 2017, I was also in the Taoyuan Judan. I
Okay.
was the sports psychologist for our athlete from Taiwan.
So we must have seen each other. We must have seen each
Yes,
other, but I was very busy at that event, for a
I
long
know,
time.
I know.
So, but it was very nice to actually spend time at the university. I met some of the people that were still involved in the faculty there, and
Hmm.
it's nice to see that there is this professional faculty within a university there. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Bagua is your favorite, and your teacher. He did Shaolin Quan, Xingyi Quan, and
Hmm.
Bagua. Shaolin is such a common term with Chinese martial
Wow.
arts that it's hard if I say Shaolin when somebody else says Shaolin. Maybe we are talking about different things. So
Wow.
what was this background of his?
Eh, Byron, I watched some of your video in Wuxing Martial Culture,
Yeah.
and I do think I am very impressed about your knowledge about the Chinese martial art.
Oh, thank you.
And many of the video that show you are an expert in the Chinese martial arts culture and the system. Seriously,
Oh, thank you very
yeah.
much.
Yeah, so when you ask this kind of question, I don't think you are very professional, even better than many many Taiwanese, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously. Yeah. As you mentioned, Shaolin is a very broad term, and we use the Shaolin in many different many different aspects. And then people when they say about the Shaolin might means very different things because that is general term. For example, we say the Bei Shaolin. Some people see the martial artists come from Shaolin Temple, or some people say the southern style Shaolin, Nan Shaolin, is a southern martial art school from southern Shaolin Temple. But indeed, they all are very different martial art style. And what the Shaolin I practice indeed is the no-turn style
Okay.
Shaolin Quan. It comes from the Shandong property,
Okay.
which include the Chang Quan, long fist, Cha Quan, and Cha Quan. We also have a very special style called the Sun Bin Quan.
Okay. Sun Bin
Yeah,
Quan.
so what? Yeah, Sun Bin Quan. So what the northern style Shaolin we practice and we pass down is northern style Chang Quan, Cha Quan, and Sun Bin Quan.
Okay.
Our grandmaster of the Shaolin Quan indeed is a professor in Chinese martial art department. His name is Sun Shaotang. He is from the Shandong property, and then because of the war, he went to Taiwan and be a professor in the Department of Chinese martial art.
Okay, very interesting. Sun Bin
Yeah.
Quan is connected to the military figure, yes?
Yes, you're right. Now, Sun Bin is he is a very famous strategist
Yeah.
for the military. Mm.
Yeah, it's very
Yes.
also not very well known in the West, this style, although, you now more and more access to information with the internet, more and more people are seeing some of the more unknown styles commonly
Uh-huh.
that weren't so common in the West, but now you can see
Yes.
them more. Cha Chuan is also very interesting because Cha Chuan was, although popularized in the last 200 years quite extensively, it has a
Mm-hmm.
close relationship with the Huimin, the Muslim population within China.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's very interesting. But it is, considered what they would consider long style boxing, open
Mm-hmm.
postures, long frames, etc. So, of these styles, you did you start any particular sequence? Did you start with Cha Chuan first, and then later on get introduced to Xingyi, or and then Bagua, or how were you taught?
Wow. So I learned Cha Quan, Sun Bin Quan, and Chang Quan in the Department of Chinese Martial Art. But you know that one of the benefit to study in the Department of Chinese Martial Art is that you have the opportunity. We have the opportunity to see many different style to practice many different style. So we practice many type of northern style, southern style, internal style. But you only practice one or two form only. Try to make you after you know everything briefly,
You have a
you can
taste.
start with yeah. You have the test, and then you have to select what you what your favorite. So I in the beginning I'm very interested about the northern style southern chair. So I start to practice with Professor Sun Shaotang and also the Zhang Shibo privately. Then we can practice the overall system. So I remember I start from the cha in the school we only practice the cha quan fourth floor, 四路 cha
Sulu.
quan.
Yeah.
Now 四路 cha quan is one of the most important
Yeah.
and popular
Most
form
popular.
in
Yeah.
the most popular form in cha quan system. And the name we only teach that. But after I'm fantastic about the cha quan, we start to practice privately as the 五路 cha quan fifth floor and also a sixth floor cha quan. We also practice a 2% drill of the six row cha quan.
Okay.
Then we practice some of other Chinese martial art weapon. Now that is the process we practice the northern style Shaolin Quan.
And what got you into the other styles, the styles of Xingyi and Bagua?
Wow. Indeed, as I mentioned, before I went to the Department of Chinese martial art, I practiced a little bit Xi and the Bagua related to Wang Shuxing system.
Right.
So indeed, my favorite still internal martial art. So I remember in the very first year of my Department of Chinese martial art period, I tell one of my colleagues say, maybe if I want to practice the Xi and Bagua, which I don't practice yet because the Xi Bagua is a higher level course. We can only practice this after we enter to the third year and the fourth year.
Oh.
So I tell my students, tell my friends, say that maybe I should go back to my hometown, Kaohsiung, because I want to practice internal martial art more. So I then try to quit my Department of Chinese martial art learning.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then one of my students tell me, you know that there's a very good coach in our department, and he is the professional Wushu athlete and also professional in the Chinese martial art, particularly in Changquan and Xi and Bagua.
Okay.
I say, oh, who is the teacher? I want to visit him. Then I just visit the teacher is my Shifu right now. It's Zhang Shibo.
Oh, wow.
Now Zhang Shibo is have a special background about the Chinese martial art. He is I think he's the first or second generation of the Wushu.
Athletes.
He is also my senior in Department of Chinese martial art. So he comes from the traditional Chinese martial art. But he also learned the new Wushu system in the early days. He can combine the Chinese martial art and the modern Chinese martial art.
Okay.
But indeed, Zhang Shibo is right now the chief coach in our national team.
Okay.
Still, he is. Yeah, and he is the main coach, the chief coach in University of Taipei, the Wushu team. He is also a professor.
That's quite interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of people, once again, I started our discussion when you introduced yourself by mentioning that people might think that traditional martial arts and modern sports science are completely different, completely separate ideas. And indeed, people think the same with sport wushu and traditional wushu. Now, I do agree that the direction sport wushu has gone to in more recent times is going very far away. But the first generation of wushu athletes had a very, very good learning and solid foundation in Chinese martial arts training methods and content. It's not the same as today. And
Yes.
even
Right.
myself, I come from this background. My teacher was a first generation wushu practitioner, and that's
Wow.
what I learned. That was my initial. I was young. I wanted to
Mhm.
jump around and fly, you know. So
Uh-huh.
I did this when I was young, and it's different to the today's version, but it helped me with my traditional practice later on. It very much helped me, so I can understand from your teacher it must be quite a similar situation.
Yes. Particularly, he is a very old style of new modern wushu. So indeed, I recently there are many and more older video from the old wushu come out, and I don't think many of the old athlete wushu athlete, indeed he performed very well from the traditional Chinese martial art perspective, and which I am very impressed about it.
Yeah, that's
And also, as you mentioned, I learned the traditional Chinese martial art. I mean, I come from Eastern society, and I also learn the things from the Western society. So for my point of view, both of the society have their own beneficial, similar to a traditional Chinese martial art and also the sport martial art. They do have their own specific benefit. So I won't say many people they only when they practice only traditional martial art, they try to argue the sport wushu.
right.
Or on the other hand, for when people only practice the sport wushu, they try to argue the traditional martial
Very
art.
true. Yeah.
But indeed, I come from the both.
Yeah.
So I do know what is their specialty
Right.
and the benefit and also the disadvantage. But how about if we can combine all the advantage together? That would be wonderful, indeed.
Exactly. 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 I mean, I started my Shifu, Di Guoyong.
He's a Goyo. Wow, okay. He's a very famous practitioner and grandmaster in Xingyi and Bagua.
Right. So he didn't do sport wushu, but like I said to you, he spent all his time. Even now, he's in his 70s. Every day he is reading something apart from his
Mhm.
practice, and it can be about anything: sports science, basketball,
Mhm.
running, weightlifting. He's always curious for these things, and this perspective helped him to refine his traditional practice. His teachers were very traditional: Li Ziming for
Mhm.
Baguazhang, Zhao
Yes.
Zhong for Xing Yiquan. So he has a very strong traditional background, but he has also his mind has been learning more modern things in terms of sports science and things like this. So for him, it's quite clear. For me, it's the same thing. I studied when I was young. I was doing sport wushu with a first generation practitioner,
Wow.
and then
Uh-huh.
afterwards I start to study with Ti Guoyong, and later I buy shirt to him, and I only practice his. But my background, I think, helped me with many aspects of my training. And like you said, if we can combine the good parts, there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
benefit to these things.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. And what kind of Xingyi and Bagua were you studying?
Okay, here I want to particularly mention about my Bagua because that is what I try to promote. Try to promote to my society, well, to my students, because I learned many different type of martial art. So I just try to focus a little bit for my own student. So my Bagua, the full name of my Bagua is 陈派高式八卦掌, which means Gao style of Cheng school Bagua. So I think as many your audience know that the Baguazhang is one of three internal martial art in the Chinese martial arts society, and Dong Haichuan,
Yeah.
as the founder of the Baguazhang, have have many different disciples, and the two of them are most popular style is the Yin style Baguazhang and the Chen style Baguazhang, Cheng 陈派 Baguazhang. Our school is come from the Chen Tinghua system. That's the reason we call us the 城市 Baguazhang. And one of the our grandmaster is his name is Gao Yisheng. He's a disciple of the Chen Dinghua.
Yeah.
So he comes from Chen Dinghua. So that's the reason we call our system is Chen Pai Gao Shi, which means Gao style of Cheng school Baguazhang.
Right. And Cheng Tinghua was also called Yanjing Cheng. So he was
Oh, Yan Jingzhen, yeah, his nickname.
yeah, because he had a glasses shop in the south side of Beijing, and yeah, he died fairly young. But as you mentioned, he's one of the two main or most popular styles of Bagua. The other one being from Yinfu, Yinfu being Dong Hai Chuan's oldest and longest disciple. So
Yes.
yeah, so tell us a little bit about your Gao style and what defines it.
Okay, so one of the special things for Bagua is that Dong Haichuan used a very different way to teach his disciples. One of the reasons is that many of the Dong Haichuan disciples already a very good practitioner in their own style.
Yeah.
So how can the Dong Haichuan teach them? Dong Haichuan used a very different way to teach. In Chinese, we call 说口不教手, which means he just talk. He don't teach the technique. Which means because all the his disciple already very good in their own martial art. What the Dong Haichuan try to do is add something very special and make their skill go to a different level. And that's the reason we call Dong Haichuan is 全霸, which means the king of the martial art. He got the idea to improve the secrets. I say the secrets for the disciple to improve their Chinese martial art. And that also make all the disciples have a different way to perform their Baguazhang. That's the reason Baguazhang is so different, even within one school.
Yes.
I think you know that Baguazhang is a very late martial art school in Chinese martial art
Yes,
history.
it's young. It's a young style.
Yeah, it's very very young. But still, if that is very young, people should practice the same way. But indeed, it's not. All of the Baguazhang have a different way to practice, but they all have the same principle.
Right.
Okay, Dong Haichuan teach that principle and make the martial art very different. Okay, so back to the Chen school, Chen Dinghua Baguazhang as well. Many of the Chen Dinghua's disciples practice the Chen style Baguazhang very different way. Of course, major of the Baguazhang have the 8-pound Bazhang.
Yeah.
But the Bazhang's name are very different within the schools.
Yes.
I mean within the Chen schools. So I think Chen Dinghua also used the way to teach. In the Chen Dinghua's period, I don't think he already fixed what he want to learn. So all the martial arts try to develop itself. And that's very important. Because the Chen Dinghua Baguazhang still development. So the disciples will develop based upon their own experience.
Yes.
And that make the school very different and special.
Yes, indeed.
And what our school, the founder of our school is Gao Yisheng. He tried to create the Chen Dinghua Baguazhang with a very different way. Because I also practice many Chen style Baguazhang and also the Yin style Baguazhang in Taiwan.
Okay.
The reason I found that the Gao style Baguazhang is a very unique one, because Gao Yisheng tried to combine the things with the logical.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the main characteristic of the Gao style Baguazhang is that the Gao Yisheng practice 先天 and 后天, which mean the pre-heaven and post-heaven.
Right.
By means of the pre-heaven means the circle walking, just like the many type of Baguazhang practitioner.
Yeah.
They just do circle walking. But except the circle walking, Gao Yisheng also practiced the post-haven 后天, which means the linear single hand with the linear practice way.
Right.
So in the 后天, in the 先天, Gao Yisheng have the 8 palms, just like the many Cheng style Baguazhang.
Yeah.
In the 后天, it have the 6-4 single hands. And the single hand practice of the linear way rather than the circle way.
Yes.
As I know, there's only 2 schools have the linear way to practice in Bagua.
Yeah.
One is the Liu Dequan system.
Yeah.
And other one is Gao Yisheng system.
So if you know my my Bagua background, I practice from Di Guoyong, who was Li Ziming's student. Our style is considered Liang style. In our Liang style, we have Liu Dequan's practice. So we do Liu Shi Si Shou, Zhi Tang Liu Shi Si Shou. But you know, also part of our basic practice is Dan Cao Ba Shi. Dan Cao Ba Shi is also linear basic practices. We do drills up and down in straight lines. And of course, then we have the circle walking like Lao Ba Zhang, Lian Huan Zhang, and Ba Mian Zhang. This is our circle walking. So yes, Liu Dequan's straight line palms are, as you mentioned, the other one that is not the same as Gao Yisheng's straight line palm, but also straight line practice. And yeah, we practice this too.
Yes, well, I know. I also practice a little Liu Deguan system because Liu Deguan system 6-4 linear palm is very famous and is very good. But there is a little different from Gao Yisheng's linear palm and the Liu Deguan system. Although the Liu Deguan system practices 6-4 palm with the linear way, I remember the Liu Deguan system practice the Bashi together, which means in the first row, they have the 8 row.
Yes.
In the first row, they have the 8 different palms.
Yes.
So they make this continuous to practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way Liu Deguan practice.
Yes.
I do think that is a very, very good way. For the Gao Yisheng, the 6-4 linear palm will practice individually.
Okay. So single technique.
So single technique, they're training this way.
Yeah.
Why is that important? Is that in the post-haven palm, Gao Yisheng make the post-haven palm with the 4 different levels to practice. The level is not only mean the concept, but also the way to practice. The 4 level, which mean 本谢猜变.
Okay.
本, which mean the practice the single technique. Your own self.
Okay.
The 谢, which means counter. Counter is mean how to counter the main technique.
Okay.
Then the 3rd level is called 猜. 猜is mean if someone counter you, how can you attack again? And the other people counter again, back again. That become the 6 different hand, become the 2-person drill. So each of the 6-4 linear palm, each of the 6 linear palm, they have the 本谢猜, which means 3 level, and 变, which means variation, is mean once you know so many different hands, then you can change whenever you like. That's the 4th level, is a concept level, and the reason Gao Yisheng designed this way is based upon the Bagua philosophy.
Right.
We say the 太极生两仪, 太极 generate the 2 pole, 两仪生4象, 2 pole become the 4 corner, 4象生八卦, 4 corner become the 八卦, and each 卦have the 8 different meaning, is 64. And do you remember the figure of the 八卦? They have the 6 different 爻.
Yes.
So total is the 368 ao,
Right.
which is the meaning of the Bagua principle. And the Gao Yisheng used that principle to create his own post-haven palm. So that's the reason in the xie level, the 本蟹 cai level, they have the 2% drill with the 6 different movement. And that become a very treasure of the Gao style Baguazhang.
That's very
Because
interesting.
many of the Baguazhang, they are very good for the single practice.
Yeah.
But regarding to the 2% practice, they are less practice in that perspective. But Gao Yishen create a lot of way to practice the 2% practice.
So he was a
And
very
that,
logical and organized person.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think that's right. I think that's the treasure of the Gao style Baozhang, and we like that very much. After you practice the Gao style Baozhang, you know a lot of way to practice a 2% drill with the appreciation.
Well,
So Gao is a
yeah. Let me give you some because what you've said here was just resonating with so many things in our Liang practice, but I guess it's not so well known. So we have, like I mentioned to you, Dan Cao Ba Shi, which is like you were
yes,
saying about the Gao style single technique drills. You go up and down with Ho Tian Palm. You do single technique. That's the first level. We also, with our Dan Cao Ba Shi, have Shuang Cao Ba Shi, which is with a partner. So it's the same thing, but with a partner. And he's countering and you are recountering to learn how to use this technique. But what's interesting with the Liu De Quan practice, which is a more advanced practice, is that we practice it with partners too. It's not only individual practice. And the way it's taught and structured is that each line has 8 techniques, but each technique has a counter that the partner does. And then the second technique that you do is a counter to the counter until number 8, which is the final technique in the sequence. There should be the end of the interaction with the opponent. The counter, recounter, counter, recounter, counter, recounter, finish. So it's quite interesting that there's some similarities actually between what you just described, you know. The philosophical aspect is additional to that, but this is on a basic level. It's very actually, there's a lot of overlap, and I actually wonder if there might have been some cross learning or cross interaction between these early practitioners, including Gao Yisheng, when they were developing their practice systems. It's something that might have happened.
yeah, I think they are come from the very similar generation and the time. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I don't know it. But as you mentioned, the Liu De Guan system is a very good system, and I do watch many of the video about it. And thank you for sharing me about they are other very deep practice in the Liu De Guan system. Very interesting.
Is there a lot of Liu De Quan practitioners in Taiwan? Or
Oh,
not so many?
I don't think so. Yeah, I do know some practitioners. They went back to mainland China to practice the Liu De Guan system back to Taiwan, but that is more recent things, not the old thing. Yeah, they just based on the art in these days, not the old years.
Oh, very, very interesting. And would you say that Gao style is the most popular or widespread Bagua practice in Taiwan?
Oh, I think in Taiwan, the most popular Bagua still the Wang Sujing system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, Wang Sujing is still a very big one in Taiwan. But what I heard is that the first at least the first one to promote the Bagua seriously is the Gao Yishen's student called his name is Zhang Junfeng.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know Zhang Junfeng.
I do.
So Zhang Junfeng he's a practitioner come from Tianjin, where he met the Gao Yishen. So he become his disciple. And after the war, he went back. He went to Taiwan to teach the Chinese martial art, particularly in Xingyi and the Bagua. The reason Zhang Junfeng is a little famous is because do you know Robert Smith?
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Robert, he have some connection with the Robert Smith, and these days we are able to see some all the video, white black video
Yeah.
of the Zhang Junfeng. I think that is filmed by Robert Smith.
Okay.
It's a treasure, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. In fact, there's now that I remember. Yes. Okay. So, why this black and white video? I saw one maybe 8 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
before this, I didn't see it, and it had
Yes.
Zhang Junfeng. I think he was doing Tiangan. He was doing.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. They practice Tiangan very much.
But
Yeah.
what's interesting is in the middle of this video, there is some gun. He's doing some stuff.
Oh, yes.
And when I saw him doing this gun, some small pieces, immediately it reminded me of one Xingyi gun set that my teacher taught me. It's called
Yes.
Zhou Gun. And
Yes.
And the way that Zhang Junfeng is doing it is so close to the way I learned it, because you can find
Oh,
Jojo Gwen videos on the internet today from more
I
more
know.
modern people, but it's different. And the closest I saw to the way my teacher taught me is those small pieces in that video of Zhang Junfeng doing it. It's some parts are exactly the same. So
Wow.
it's very
Wow, you know that? But you are a very special one. Seriously, you know so many Chinese martial art things. From the internal martial art perspective, you are so good.
I
You
had a
know
good
that?
teacher, so
Not, yeah, you are a very few person know what Zhang Qifeng practice.
uh,
Yes, even his student don't know.
oh really?
But you are right. What he performed is we call it 周同棍. Some people also call that as a 九州棍. That is the one of the traditional form from Xingyi.
Mm-hmm.
But indeed, I think that is from the Di Chunyi system.
Right.
Wow, you're very good about
Oh,
this.
well, yeah. Actually, that set that my teacher taught me was it's quite a long set actually, and
Uh,
I still practice it, so I still like to do it very much. What I found quite
uh-huh.
interesting with this set compared to some other sets is that it mixes the
Mm-hmm.
the grip method. The
Yeah,
would
but
would
I don't think Zhang Junfeng he learned this form from the he practiced the 周同棍 with the old way
okay.
because Zhang Junfeng is a businessman
Mm.
and he is quite rich in Tianjin area, so he was able to invite many grandmaster back to that time related to Xinyi and Bagua to his home. So he is able to learn from many grandmaster
Mm.
back to that time. Mm.
Yeah, those
So
days it was quite, if you had money and you were able to call these people, you could learn many good things. It was a
yeah,
interesting time. It was a very interesting time.
uh-huh.
And you mentioned him bringing this style to, or these practices to Taiwan, and your line comes through. Is there a connection to him as well directly?
Yeah, indeed, in all time we have some connection with the Zhang Junfeng.
Mm-hmm.
Zhang Junfeng also teach a lot of students, and a lot of students. And one of my grandmaster, which means Shi Ye, he is learning the Zhang Junfeng's system,
Mm-hmm.
which he also call a Gao style Baguazhang. However, when he practiced, he he realized what he teach might be a little miss compared to the old menu.
Oh.
You know, in the Gao Yisheng system, we have the menu, handwritten menu exists.
Mm-hmm.
And while the Zhang Junfeng is a very good practitioner, but the context, I think my Shi Ye Jia think maybe they have some missing. So about 25 years or 30 years ago, he was able to go back to mainland China
Mm.
and find the relative of the Gao Yisheng, which is the Liu Fengcai,
Yes.
is the nephew of Gao Yisheng. Liu Fengcai was very lucky. The two things lucky is that he's the relative of Gao Yisheng. So he learned the Baguazhang since he was 9 years old. And after the 10 years practice, Gao Yisheng see he is very good. So he just asked the Liu Fengcai to stay with him and bring the Liu Fengcai to Tianjin. So in order to become the Gao Yisheng's assistant, in order to have the Gao Yisheng teach, so Gao Yisheng teach the Liu Fengcai a lot of material and let him become one of the practitioners, know major of the content of Gao Yisheng.
Right.
And my Shiye went to the Tianjin to see the Liu Fengcai lineage and try to learn all of the system from Gao Yisheng system.
And who did he find there? Do you know?
Yeah, Liu Fengcai, before he passed away, he just gave the name to his disciple called Wang Shusheng. Wang Shusheng we call the Shi Daye, which means the grandmaster's grandmaster.
Yeah.
Shi Daye. Wang Shusheng teach the disciple named Ge Guoliang and Li Xueyi. And then Zhang Shibo, my master, learned from he is a disciple of both Ge Guoliang and Li Xueyi. So we learn from this lineage. And I know the Ge Guoliang and Li Xueyi about 50 years ago, and I was very lucky. My Sifu bring me to Tianjin to visit them.
Oh, wow.
And then, so I had opportunity to meet with them. And then when I pursued my PhD degree in 2004, luckily, the Tang Shoudao Association in United States also invite the Ge Guoliang and the Li Xueyi went to USA. Then I was the interpreter for them to translate. Then I have the opportunity to learn from the Ge Guoliang and the Li Xueyi.
Was that the group that Vince Black was involved in?
Yeah, so Vincent Black is a group from the Tang Shoudao Association. Yeah, so he used practice with the lineage related to Zhang Junfeng. So, but after he practiced for a year, as I mentioned, he observed that maybe the Zhang Junfeng system have some missing part.
About
the context. I don't misunderstand. I respect the Zhang Junfeng very much. He is a very good practitioner. I just mentioned about the context. So he also went to the Tianjin to see the Gao Yisheng's overall system about the Baguazhang.
Okay. Yeah. Did you know that Vince Black also spent some time with my teacher?
In Liang style? Yes.
In Liang style, I have some photos even from that time when my teacher was teaching them some Bagua, Gun Shou Dao, and some other long time ago. And he had always good things to say about Vince Black. He always, whenever I mentioned Vince Black, my teacher would say, "Oh, he's very tall. Very tall."
Oh yeah, he's a big guy.
And he can drink very well. So I remember this.
I think Vincent Black is one of the very early foreigner, United States American, went to mainland China to practice internal martial art. He learned the Liang style very much. I know that. He also practiced with the Li Ziming, as I remember.
Yes.
And the translated their menu.
Right. Yeah, he was somebody that I think was like a icebreaker for Americans to come in to study these arts here. So that was good. Many of the people that came with his group, they became, one of the main teachers in America in the last 20 years. And when you went to the USA with them, do you still go to the USA quite often? Do you have connections there?
Yeah, indeed. I still I don't have the connection with them.
Mm.
The reason I visit them is because the Grandmaster Ge Guoliang and Li Xueyi, he was invited to mainland China. Sorry, he was invited to United States to have the workshop. So I just visited them and become their interpreter for them.
Ah, okay.
But I still have very good relationship with Ge Guoliang and Li Xueyi. After I back to Taiwan on 2008, indeed is 2009, I then traveled to Tianjin to visit the land and the training with them in person.
Wow.
I think at least one or two, twice a year. So I was a particular fan with the Grandmaster Ge Guoliang. I become the I become I learn Baguazhang with him quite often.
Okay. Okay, and do you still go to the USA now?
Oh, I still in fact I think I still have the three of my disciples still practice still teach the Chinese martial art, particularly in Xinyi Tai Chi and the Bagua in the United States.
Okay.
So I was invited to have the workshop at least a year, once a year, and I love to practice with my students and also the other
Yeah,
Americans.
that's great. I think I saw some videos of you teaching in a workshop in America. I don't know which year it was, but again, that's why I reached out to you, was because what I saw you teaching in the video, I was impressed with, and I thought it was very good. That's why I wanted to talk to
Thank
you.
you very much.
So,
Yeah.
is there a particular state that you go to teach, or is it always
Yeah.
different?
I have teach mainly in North Carolina because I just received my PhD degree in University of North Carolina at Greensboro. So I made many good friends there and also my disciple there. So mainly I had the workshop in North Carolina. But I also have the workshop in Florida
Ah,
because one of the student disciple also come from Florida.
ah.
So I have the workshop there as
Well,
well.
that's great. Well, I mean, when we do get some information about your upcoming workshops, you should let me know, and I'll tell people through my channels, and then maybe some more people can come and attend. So, what would you
Thank
say
you.
is, I mean, in your experience, the difference between teaching and training in Taiwan and China compared with teaching Westerners and Americans in general?
Whoa, let me think. That's a very good question. But the first one in Taiwan, when I practice Chinese martial art in Taiwan, I think I still learn it as a very as a traditional way, which means we are very interested about it. So I just visit my sifu very much and learn it from him. Although my sifu is quite open, but we still in a very uh, small group.
Ah,
We don't practice public.
okay.
Yeah, that's the way. And then when we went to mainland China, especially practice in Tianjin, we become more conservative, I think.
Oh,
I think practitioner in mainland China, they teach the martial art in two different ways. The one is in public and the one is in indoor.
Rumen.
When you teach in public, they only practice a very general things.
Yeah.
They won't say too much, and they even don't want people to watch me. And they only talk serious things after we go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we training with a different way. That's what I think when I train in mainland China, the experience I had in mainland China and even in Taiwan. But after I go to the United States, I try to use a different way because these days people have too many choice.
Yeah.
If we try to hide many things, right now this day we already have very hard time to let people to enjoy the
Yeah.
Chinese martial
Yeah,
art
that's
because
true.
many have so many choice. So I try to give them more opportunity to learn, and also based upon my experience in academic, for my teaching, I try to create the martial art teaching using the curriculum
Okay.
and with the just like the school system. In school, the Western society to do that. What the teacher want to do is let you know many things
Mm.
at a short period of time. And what the student to do is that if you can, just try your best to learn. So as a teacher, that's my teaching way. I create my martial art course with one period of time. For example, 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, in these 3 months, I will teach something. What things I already decide for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what the student want to do is try to focus and try your best to teach, to study.
Right.
The reason I do that way is that when I practice the traditional Chinese martial art, you never know when you can learn the new things or new
Mm-hmm.
things. You always wait until when the Shifu happy, he will teach you something. Sometimes
It's true.
after the whole years of practice, he say, "Okay, today we practice the whole 套路." We use the 2 hours to practice the whole 套路,
Yeah.
but we can use the 2 or 3 months to practice nothing.
Yeah.
Students when students want to learn something, they just out of patience.
Yeah.
And then they will think, what should I do? Let the teacher teach me more.
Uh-huh.
They think in a different way, and I don't want to let these things happen.
I see.
So I will tell a student, for these 3 months, okay, we'll practice one set of brasso.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to think anything. We just focus on the sword. And what I want the teacher to do is try to teach you everything. And how good you are is based upon your practice.
Right.
That way is very different from traditional way, because the traditional way is that if the Shifu think you are not good enough, you never enter to the next step.
Yeah.
So I don't want to use that way, because in that way, we will lose many students and patients.
Yeah. You.
So I design my martial art course.
Right. I see.
And I will tell them all of what I know, and try to encourage them to practice more.
I think that's good. I mean, in some ways, my teacher is the same, but in some ways, he's also conservative. So what I mean is, for us students that are close to him, he is very open and tries to teach as much as possible, as deeply as possible. But of course, there are some people that are not so close that will train, and then they will just learn when he feels like teaching them something. So it's true. But I do remember one time many years ago, my teacher was talking to me, and he had taught me some specific Gong Fa. We have quite a few different Gong Fa practices.
Yes.
And he told me, when I practice this outside, don't let people watch. And if I see people watching, I must change the movement. So there are some things that he doesn't like to openly show so easily. But in general, and I think also when he teaches Westerners, he's a little bit... When he teaches, a group of Westerners or goes to teach somewhere overseas, then he teaches somewhat to, like you say. You say, okay, you're going to learn this in this period. You just do your best to follow. I remember there was a couple of students once that came from overseas to study with him. And I helped to translate when they came. And when they arrived, they came with a piece of paper that they wrote down what they want to learn. And when I saw this, I got angry. I said to them, this is very rude from a traditional point of view,
I know.
I know. You don't do this. But for them, they thought it's completely normal, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's I totally understand what you mentioned. You're right.
Yeah.
That's a very different way from the Western and the Eastern society. But as the connection become between the West and East, what I want to do is try to solve this problem.
Yeah, I think that each generation needs to look at the situation in society now and look at the condition of the martial arts health. I don't mean as the system. I mean in terms of Are people interested in learning it? And then you need to make adjustments to make sure that the art can be spread down into the future. Otherwise, if you don't look and you just close your eyes, next generation, nobody knows and nobody's learning. So
You are totally right. Yeah, I think as a practitioner and the one who passionate about Chinese martial art, we do need to, in the new generation, we do need to find other way to promote it.
yeah, that's very true. Well, I don't want to take your whole day. It's been very interesting talking to you, and your research into these aspects with regards to your professional work. I'm very excited about what you're doing and what you're researching and producing. So please do keep us. Let me know how things are going. If you have something interesting you want to share with the general people in the world, let me know, because I find it very fascinating your connection and your line of work with what you're doing to traditional martial arts and into modern sports and psychology, etc. I think it's very good.
Thank you very much to have the interview with me, and I'm very glad and very happy to talk to you.
Me too. And what I'll do is, if you want and people are able to get in contact, later on I'll ask you for your methods that you want people, if they want to contact you, then I'll put it in the notes, and then people can reach out if they're looking to get in contact with you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been great chatting to you, and I hope you have a good day, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, you too. And let's keep in touch for sure.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.